Chapter 12, Finally at Ease. Rinku had brought back what little materials and meat he could gather from the bits of the scorpion. Ryuma almost destroyed the monster to the point where nothing was gatherable. Ryuma helped him carry the supplies back to the base Rinku had created. Once you drank the blood of the scorpion, she revived in a flash and her body displayed a splendid strengthening as she got back her superhuman strength. They could have used the sealed room, but when it was proposed you adamantly refused. No wonder. It was natural to hate the place you were sealed up into for so long. At that moment, they were talking to each other while they resupplied. Ryuma, so, in conclusion. You is 300 years old. You, breach of etiquette. You watched Ryuma with reproachful eyes full of criticism. A talk of age seems to be a taboo for any woman in any world. Rinku, don't mind him, he has no manners in his body. Ryuma, oh you're too kind. Rinku, do all vampires live long? You, I'm special. My regeneration halts my aging. You then points at Ryuma. You, why do you wear such a tattered piece of clothing over your eyes? Ryuma, well, my eyes cause my mana to drain continuously. You tilted her head in confusion, she had never heard of anything like that before. Rinku, he's right, I'm not sure how, but when we combined monster meat and sacred water, his eyes popped out of his head and were replaced with a new set. You was even more confused. You, show me. Ryuma, aren't you daring today? As Ryuma took off the blindfold, Yu's eyes widened as she witnessed the neon purple eyes of his. She didn't know what they were or what they could do, but she did know that they were a force to be reckoned with. Ryuma, so what ya think? Gorgeous aren't they? Rinku, more like strange. You watched on as Rinku and Ryuma began, in a word, arguing, similar to how brothers would. A smile came across her face as Ryuma began to put his blindfold back on. Rinku, do you know anything about this place, specifically escape routes? I don't, but... She didn't seem to know anything about the labyrinth, she was apoplectic and continued with her story. It is said that one of the traitors made this labyrinth. Ryuma, ding. 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 That proves it. We were destined to be here. Rinku then proceeded to hit Ryuma over the head as he asked. Rinku, what do you mean traitors? You continued with her story. 8 of them existed. 8 of them rebelled against God to destroy the world. However, when they failed they fled to the ends of the world. The places they fled to were the current 8 great dungeons. One of them was Arcus Dungeon, the current dungeon they were in. It is said that in the deepest part of the abyss was where one of the traitor lived. Rinku, that means there is a way out. Ryuma, man so serious. Even if his personality had changed, Rinku still had his otaku knowledge. As he unintentionally thought of an unpleasant thought, you reacted to it. Rinku, you just thought of something strange. Rinku, nope, nothing. Ryuma, lies. Pretending ignorance was too late, he started to sweat because of her sharp woman intuition. He tried to deceive her by working quietly. You left that when she wanted to ask a question. Rinku, Ryuma, why are you here? It was a natural question. Here in this abyss. Unless you were a demon, this wasn't a place to live in. You wanted to ask about so much. Why can Rinku manipulate magic directly? Why can he use magic that are like special magic? How can he eat demon flesh and be okay? What happened to Ryuma's left arm? Are they even human? What weapon is Rinku using? More information on Ryuma's eyes. Bit by bit, they answered the questions dutifully. They might have been craving for a conversation after all this time alone. The conversation went on and they did not even look troubled at her questions. You was probably someone they wanted to be sweet on. Maybe she was the last resort to prevent his complete fall into heartlessness. Rinku specifically felt that about her unconsciously. They started with when his class was summoned to this world. How they were ostracized by everyone, next was their battle with the behemoth and the betrayal of their classmate that caused them to fall into this abyss. Eating various types and amounts of demons. The desire to fight the bear. What the potion could do. They talked about how Rinku developed the weapons by basing them on weapons he saw at his home world. Sniffles could be heard from you gradually. When they looked at her, she was weeping. Startled, Rinku instinctively reached out and wiped off her tears as Ryuma smirked at him. Rinku, hey, are you good? You suffered so much, like me. Ryuma, nah. You went through way worse. Rinku then rammed his fist into Ryuma's guy to shut him up. Rinku, just forget about that, the business with my classmate has no merit to me. Don't worry about the small stuff. After getting my revenge, then what would I do? Rather than that, I want to put all my energy in surviving and finding a way home. You, going home? Rinku, yeah, home, even if I've changed a lot. Home is still where I want to be. You, I see. You looked down with a sunken expression, she then muttered to herself. You, I don't have a place to go home to. Ryuma, you could come with us? You opened her eyes wide in surprise at Ryuma's words. Rinku then started to speak frantically. Rinku, well, yeah, I mean, our home world, it's a place with average humans you know, and, though it would be a bit tight without family registration, so. You was stunned for a while, but eventually her mind caught up. She timidly asked. You, is that okay? Her eyes couldn't hide the expectations dwelling in them. The eyes were sparkling and Rinku nodded. Like until now her expressionlessness was a lie, a smile bloomed on her face. Rinku was mesmerized. When he noticed himself he panicked and shook his head as Ryuma couldn't help but snicker at his friend's reaction. Unable to look at you, Rinku devoted himself to his work. You took great interest in his work. The amount of distance between them shortened. Rinku persuaded himself to not mind it. Name, Rinku Kagure. Age, 17 years old. Gender, male. Level, 51. Class, Synergist. Strength, 980. Vitality, 1090. Resistance, 970. Agility, 1260. Magic, 980. Magic resistance, 980. Skills. Transmutation, mineral appraisal, precision transmutation, mineral inquiry, mineral separation, material breakdown, material composition breakdown, beyond material composition crafting, beyond mineral fusion, predator, replica transmutation, material replication, magic manipulation. Magic emission, magic sensory, magic compression, iron stomach, ironclad, divine step, air walk, flicker, grand legs, air claws, night vision, perception, magic perception, hide presence, poison resist, paralysis resist, petrification resist, varja, magic penetration, language comprehension. Name, Ryuma Najika. Age, 17 years old. Gender, male. Level, 51. Class, Sorcerer, Space. Strength, 2400. Vitality, 2100. Resistance, 3600. Agility, 1000. Magic, Error. Magic resistance, Error. Skills. Push, pull, erasure, flash, blinding, beyond complex magic proficiency, healing, martial arts proficiency, space manipulation, projectile proficiency, after image, familiar summoning, resurrection, ghetto mazo summoning, necromancy, Renigan, magic absorption, magic resistance, magic manipulation. Barrier magic, teleportation, magic sight, physical enhancement, magical barrier removal, illusion magic, remote control, six paths, flight, flicker, absolute defense, language comprehension. Chapter 13, Guardian of the Depths. Their journey continued until they had descended beyond 100 levels of the dungeon. Before each level, Rinku would check their supplies and equipment. As always, whenever Rinku would work, you would be there staring at him. She was really watching him rather than the work. Even now she was watching him work from his right side while relaxing. Her expression did not suit the atmosphere of the dungeon. None of them knew how many days had passed since they met each other, due to the lack of knowing time underground. Recently, Yu was displaying a more comfortable expression. She was even acting a little spoiled. Whenever they were resting at base, she would especially get glued to Rinku as Ryuma watched on with a devious smirk on his face. Rink had the feeling this was his idea. If Rinku laid down, she would cling on his arm while they slept near each other. You would embrace him from the back when he sat down. When she fed on his blood, she would cuddle him from the front. She would stay there even after she was done feeding. With a content expression, she would rub her face on his chest. Rinku has even caught Ryuma and Yu fist bumping after she does these things. They must have planned it together. The duo's current status. Name, Rinku Kagure. Age, 17 years old. Gender, male. Level, 76. Class, Synergist. Strength, 1980. Vitality, 2090. Resistance, 2070. Agility, 2450. Magic, 1780. Magic resistance, 1780. Skills. Transmutation, mineral appraisal, precision transmutation, mineral inquiry, mineral separation, material breakdown, material composition breakdown, beyond material composition crafting, beyond mineral fusion, predator, replica transmutation, material replication, magic manipulation. Magic emission, magic sensory, magic compression, iron stomach, ironclad, divine step, air walk, flicker, grand legs, air claws, night vision, perception, magic perception, hide presence, poison resist, paralysis resist, petrification resist, varja, magic penetration, telepathic communication. Coercion, language comprehension. Name, Ryuma Najika. Age, 17 years old. Gender, male. Level, 76. Class, Sorcerer, Space. Strength, 5000. Vitality, 4000. Resistance, 4500. Agility, 1200. Magic, Error. Magic resistance, Error. Skills. Push, pull, erasure, flash, blinding, beyond complex magic proficiency, healing, martial arts proficiency, space manipulation, projectile proficiency, after image, familiar summoning, resurrection, ghetto mazo summoning, necromancy, Renigan, magic absorption, magic resistance, magic manipulation. Barrier magic, teleportation, magic sight, physical enhancement, magical barrier removal, illusion magic, remote control, six paths, flight, flicker, absolute defense, time manipulation awareness, telepathic communication, language comprehension. The level the trio stumbled upon was a very large space supported by a vast number of pillars. Unlike the usual rough ground in the dungeon, this place had beautiful flat ground. The room gave off a solemn atmosphere. They stepped into the room while they admired it. All the pillars started to shine faintly then. This got them to regain their caution. Pillars lit up sequentially towards the back of the room. Rinku was vigilant to begin with, but they continued forward due to nothing happening. They advanced while making full use of their senses and perception skills. After moving a short distance, they noticed a dead end ahead, no, a huge door. It was a double door that had beautiful scriptures engraved into it. Rinku's instincts were shooting warnings throughout his body, despite his perception not going off itself. He knew it was going to be bad ahead. You also seemed to feel something along similar lines as well as sweat dropped from her forehead. Ryuma, guys. We did it. We finally reached the end. Rinku/you, idiot. At that moment, a huge magic formation appeared between them and the door. Crimson light was emitting and began pulsating. Rinku, what's with the size of this thing? Ryuma, it's fine, cause we're the strongest, remember? As expected, Rinku smiled as you grabbed onto his arm tightly with a determined look on her face. Kuriyuan. A pair of 6 eyes stared down at the trio as it shouted a strange roar. It looked as if it wanted to bring down judgment upon intruders who didn't know their place. A fierce thirst for blood that would have stopped an ordinary man's heart was flung at the trio. Ryuma then smirked. Ryuma, interesting, won't be needing this then. Ryuma began taking off his blindfold, those neon purple eyes staring back at the beast in front of them. The head with a red crest then opened its mouth as flames were emitted from it. The flames were already on scale to the walls around them. Rinku and you both jumped out of the way as Ryuma took it head on. You, Ryuma. Rinku, you, he's fine. Rinku spoke to you through his telepathy skill. As you was told this, the fire began to dissipate. There stood Ryuma with his palm out as he was absorbing the attack. Rinku then fired his gun at the red head of the dragon. He blows it to bits. He pumped his fist in victory but was quickly proved wrong as a white light engulfed around the red head and reformed it completely. You had launched an ice shard at a green head and blew it away. However, the result was the same as the red one when the white head casts its spell. Rinku, you. Ryuma. Aim for the white head or all of this is useless. The head with a blue pattern shot out gravel of ice from its mouth. The trio were aiming for the white head while they avoided the shot. Ryuma, Silver Surge. Bang. Ryuma pointed his finger towards the white head. A silver ball of energy began to form as it was fired off like a gun. However, the moment when it was about to hit, the yellow head quickly went into the line of fire and bloated. The head shined yellow and took both of the attacks head on. After the attack settled, there was a flawless yellow head glaring at them. Rinku, great. A shield. Just our luck. Rinku then threw an incendiary grenade over the heads. At the same time, he fired his gun at the white head with full power. You helped by firing off her scarlet spear in rapid succession. Her azure sky may have surpassed the yellow head and hit the white head, but she would be easy prey after using such a strong spell that would exhaust her. She may be able to recover fast if she drank blood, but the heads were probably not going to allow the chance. Unless the number of heads could be halved, she couldn't use her best spells. The yellow head was taking all of their attacks. But soon it was showing signs of damage in its previously flawless head. Kuruin. Its white head heals the yellow head at once. The head performed its healer role perfectly. However, at that moment the incendiary grenade exploded over the white head. Tar at 3000 degrees centigrade was scattered around. When it poured onto the white head, it screamed in pain. Rinku, don't miss this chance. Rinku sent this message telepathically. They planned for a simultaneous attack. Before they could execute, a scream sounded. Use scream. There he saw Ryuma standing over you, shielding her from wind blades and fireballs fired by the green head and red head. His knees began buckling underneath him. Ryuma quickly spoke to Rinku through his telepathy. Ryuma, bro. The black head did something, to you. Rinku, protect you. I'll take care of these red and green bastards real quick. Rinku fired his gun at the black head, while he dodged around with flicker and airwalk. With the sound of the firearm, the black head that was staring at you was blown away. You collapsed at the same time. He could see that her face was pale even from a distance. The blue head opened its big mouth and stretched its head towards you to swallow her. Ryuma turned his head towards the blue head. A killer instinct could be felt from miles away. It gave you chills. Ryuma, hollow purple. Suddenly, as Ryuma flicked his two fingers, the force of this attack eviscerated the blue head, leaving nothing, not even blood, for the white head to heal, as a trail of destruction was left. At that moment, Rinku appeared next to Ryuma and you. He was going to handle the red and green heads, but eventually realized he wasn't going to be able to and keep Ryuma and you safe. He could feel Ryuma's magic draining quickly. Rinku, hey. You. Get it together. She didn't react to his words with her appalling expression and trembling body. What the heck did the black head do to her? While he cursed, he slapped Yu's cheeks. Rinku called out for her telepathically and gave her some sacred water. After a while, light began to dwell in her hollow eyes. Rinku, you. Rinku, Ryuma. Rinku, we're here. You. What happened? You confirmed their existence with blinking eyes. She extended her small hands and touched Rinku's face. A relieved sigh escaped her lips as she realized that Rinku was really in front of her, and tears began to collect at the edge of her eyes. You, what a relief, I thought I was abandoned, alone in the dark again. Rinku, what are you talking about? Rinku was perplexed at her current state. You would go on to explain a scene she saw play out where the duo had abandoned her and Ressa led her. When she saw that, a strong sense of insecurity struck her. She became bound by fear, then it paralyzed her body and mind. You watched Rinku curse at the troublesome enemy with her anxious eyes. It was a frightening scene. Being abandoned by them. Rinku was the person to risk his own life at unsealing her after 300 years. He didn't treat her differently after she told him she was a vampire, and allowed her to feed off of him day by day. It was unavoidable that her heart yielded. The only place for you was besides them both. How nice it was when they promised to return to their hometown together. She didn't even want to imagine being alone again. Therefore the planted nightmare was stuck in her head and ate her up. Rinku then stands up at the sign of the Hydra, recovering from the confusion. You detained him involuntarily when she grabbed his clothes. Ryuma looked back as he faced the Hydra. Ryuma, Rinku. Stay here with you. Before Rinku could argue, Ryuma had already lunged towards the Hydra. Placing his palm out and sending a giant wave of energy towards the Hydra, pushing it back against the wall with a thud. Rinku looked down at you, who was shaking with an uneasy expression that was close to crying. Rinku finally understood what nightmare she saw and what she was currently thinking. In his usual manner, he was able to perceive her feelings. Either way, he had promised to take her to Japan. There was no reason to pretend not to know. He would probably be able to comfort her with words, but there was no time for that. If he said some half-hearted words, she would still fall prey to the Blackhead's magic. There was a possibility that Rinku would mess up, but at that time he will follow you. While he thought of that excuse, Rinku scratched his head and squatted in front of you to meet her eyes. Rinku then inclined his head and kissed you. Their lips only touched a bit, but you had a dramatic reaction. She just seriously stared at Rinku. He averted his eyes bashfully, and led her to stand with his hand. Rinku, we will kill that beast and survive. Then, we will reach the surface and return home, together. You started at Rinku in utter amazement, then her usual deadpan expression broke down to gently display a beautiful smile. Yes. Rinku then cleared his throat to gather himself and informed you of the strategy. Rinku, I'm going to use the school again. It can't fire continuously, so please cover me. What about Ryuma? Rinku, trust me, he knows. Is suddenly full of motivation. Her quiet mutters were gone, and in place was a voice full of ambition. All the anxiety before vanished completely. It seems like there has been a breakthrough in various ways. Rinku recalled his usual lack of independence, he thinks about the future, maybe he acted rashly. However, the Hydra performed an explosion. Ryuma's charred body was sent from the smoke as the beast roared. Ryuma, damn it. I used too much magic. I can't move. Rinku, Ryuma. You and Rinku both jumped out of the way of the Hydra's next attack, Rinku grabbing Ryuma's body before it hit the ground. Rinku, dude, are you good? Ryuma, yeah, just used up too much magic is all. Scarlet Spear. Imperial Cannon. Frozen Rain. The trigger for the magic was activated rapidly. Magic built up at an impossible speed, an ice tornado accompanied a spiraling spear with vacuum blades whirling around it and a sharp needle attacked the Hydra all at once. She had aimed for the gap when they attacked and launched it towards the red and green heads to force the yellow head to act. But it didn't move as the yellow head noticed Rinku now aiming for the white head, it raised a roar. Suddenly, a nearby pillar waved and it transformed into an impromptu shield. Use magic hit the stone walls, it blasted through the vanguard of walls. The magic directly hit 3 of the heads. 3 of the heads screamed and wriggled. When the black head's eyes caught Use, it started to use its debuff magic. Uneasiness wells up in you again. However, you remembers her kiss with Rinku before she is crushed by the uneasiness. Then, her body got a passionate feeling and it washed away her anxiety. It doesn't work anymore. In order to cover Rinku, you was casting spells rapidly and was emphasizing the number of spells rather than the power of them. The red head that received healing, blue head, and green head resumed their attacks, and you contended with them by herself. They tried to counter each other. While the 3 heads were occupied with you, Rinku approached the beast with a dash. He was going for a single killing blow, because it would be troublesome if the beast had emergency measures it had yet to use. When the black head realized its magic didn't work on you, it looked for the other 2. The pain, hunger, and anxiety of his time in the abyss rose inside his chest. But Rinku, so what? It was the past that he endured a long time ago. Feeling those days was not a big deal now. Rinku blew away the black head with Donner. The white head tried to recover the head in a split second, but before it could, Rinku jumped into the air using his skills and aimed his school again. Just as he had assumed, the yellow head stood in the way of the shot for the white head. Rinku, then break together. Rinku creates a spark in the school again with his lightning clad. The bullet was a full metal jacket, the Toru ore being covered by the Stahl ore from the Scorpion. Stahl ore had a high affinity to magic and it suited lightning clad well. All the compressed combustion powder was ignited with the spark. Bang! The red bullet was electromagnetically accelerated through the barrel with a tremendous explosive sound. This gun was 10 times more powerful than Donner's maximum output. When it was fired, the bullet made a red trail like it was a thick laser. Once, they thought Kauki's spell that was shot at the behemoth was the trump card, but this made that look like child's play. Yellowhead met the bullet directly as it burned through the air. Although the yellowhead had a defense like Vajra, but the bullet reached the whitehead like there was nothing there. The bullet penetrated through everything like nothing as it blasted through the wall in the rear. Vibrations violently racked the whole level as if an earthquake had happened. What was left was two necks that looked like two heads had not even existed there. The open wound had been cauterized by the heat and made it seem like it never had those two heads. Debris was littered everywhere, and no one knew how long that bullet kept going, only that it left a huge hole in the wall. The other heads did not think that almost half of its heads could be extinguished in a single moment. Even Yu was staring at Rinku in utter amazement and had forgotten her enemy. Rinku landed flat on the ground. There was smoke rising out of Skoolagan as the round was ejected. When the shell hit the floor, the two heads regained their senses. Both pairs of eyes glared at Rinku, but their previous opponent was not someone to take their eyes off of. Ryuma, Surge Silver. Yu, Scorching Heaven. A silver stream of energy came shooting at the Hydra alongside 6 spheres of lightning, creating a combination of magic that formed similar to a bomb going off. The remaining two heads attempted to run, the energy was serving as a wall. Helpless, the two heads screamed in agony as it was charcoaled and erased by the superlative magic that lasted more than 10 seconds. Like always, Yu and Ryuma collapsed into a sitting position after using that strong of an attack. Yu was breathing heavily at her magical exhaustion, and in her expressionless face were her eyes that conveyed satisfaction. They both gave Rinku a thumbs up to show her satisfaction. Rinku returned the gesture with his own thumbs up and smiled. He began to walk while he carried the rifle on his shoulder. The remaining parts of the Hydra were to the rear of him now that he made his way to Yu. Just after that, however, Yu, Rinku. Yu's desperate voice sounded out. When he considered what was up, he followed her line of sight. There in the Hydra's remains rose a 7th head that glared at him. Rinku stiffens unintentionally. However, the 7th silver head shifted its gaze to Yu and Ryuma, and it let loose an aura without any preparations. Like the Skoolagan shot, the aura shot towards Yu in an instant. She couldn't move because of magic exhaustion. Rinku jumped in front of Yu to take the hit, however Ryuma then jumped in front of Rinku, taking the hit as he was engulfed by it. Yu and Rinku were blown away by the force of the attack alone. Soon the aura calmed down, and Rinku and Yu both sat up as they writhed in pain. They both began searching for Ryuma. Ryuma had not moved from the point of impact, his charred body dripping with blood. He was in an imposing stance as smoke blew from his whole body. "You are Ryuma." "Rinku, what the hell, man?" Ryuma didn't answer, however, his body jerked as he fell forward to be caught by Rinku. "You, Ryuma." Yu quickly rushed over to him, ignoring her aching body as she was driven by uneasiness. Because of her magic drain, she couldn't gather any strength and fell. With a suppressed impatient feeling, she took out her sacred water and drank. Her vitality returned slowly and she rushed over to Ryuma this time. "Rinku, come on, man. Wake up. Damn it, wake up." Blood gradually began to puddle underneath Ryuma. Rinku checked for his pulse. It was slow, but it was there. It's a miracle that he is still alive. When Rinku turned him on his back, Ryuma's condition was severe. His fingers, shoulder, and flank were burned and festering. Some of the parts even had bone exposed. The right side of his face was burned and his right eye was bleeding, leaking blood, but remained in contact. There was not much damage to his legs. It was a blessing in disguise. Yu handed some sacred water to Rinku to give to Ryuma, but the Hydra wouldn't allow it. The beast began shooting rays of light towards them, comparable to that of a Gatling gun. Rinku quickly grabbed both Ryuma and Yu and took cover behind one of the pillars. Balls of light were shot one after another at the pillars, causing the pillars to be shaved. It would not last even one more minute. Each of the light balls was loaded with terrifying energy. Yu quickly dropped the sacred water into Ryuma's wound, and tried to get him to drink another one. However, Ryuma didn't have the power to swallow it, so he choked on it and spit some out. Rinku had to force his mouth closed and massage his throat in order for it to go down. But the sacred water was not able to restore the wounds. Usually, the restoration began immediately, it seems like something was inhibiting it. Rinku punched the ground in frustration. Rinku, why? The factor that was inhibiting the restoration was Hydra's poison in the aura. The poison melted the flesh. It usually would have melted a being without resistance. However, the sacred water's restoration was faster than the dissolution speed of the poison. The speed was slow, but with Ryuma's enhanced body it would just take time to heal. Soon the pillar will be crushed, and it does not seem Ryuma will be able to move until then. Yu stares at Rinku with a determined expression as he stands up. Rinku jumped out from behind the pillar as the silver head's eyes glared at him. Rinku began dodging and weaving, firing his gun at the head. Finally, one of the balls hit Rinku in the shoulder. Groaning in pain, he endured it and resumed running after retaining his momentum. The moment he stopped because of the pain, would be the time he collapsed. Rinku tried to approach it, but the density of the barrage prevented her. He wouldn't be able to shoot Donner if he couldn't get closer. A plan was needed to close the distance between him and the beast. However, the barrage was merciless and it finally cornered her. In desperation, he pulled Donner's trigger to try to break the situation. The bullet went through the gaps of the barrage to hit the silver head's temple. However, it didn't do much damage. Rinku gritted his teeth. However, such a pattern couldn't continue on forever. The silver head's eyes shined and another aura was shot that jarred the surrounding space. Rinku's evasion route was limited by the light ball barrage, so he chose to get blown away by jumping into the light bullets. This allowed her to avoid the aura. The price for that was a light bullet to the abdomen and a slam into the ground. His body couldn't move. If he didn't move, a barrage of light bullets was going to hit him. Rinku knew this and struggled desperately, but his body didn't listen. The bullets of light approached Rinku, but he did not close her eyes. To show that at least it hadn't defeated his heart, he glared at the head. Soon, her whole vision was being taken by the flash from the bullet. If it hit directly, it was death. He tried to apologize to Ryuma and Yu for failing to protect them, but as he said that in an instant a gust of wind blew. Yu was standing over Rinku with her palm out facing towards the Hydra. She was breathing heavily. Rinku, Yu. Yu gazed at the silver head. The head glared back while making a bullet of light float in the surrounding. It threw the bullet so there would be no more discussion about who escaped death. Yu didn't move until the last minute. She fell down and narrowly evaded the blow. The head narrowed its eyes and started to attack with numerous light balls. Rinku, Yu. Run. Rinku told Yu with a hint of desperation, but Yu was indifferent, determined to protect Rinku and Ryuma. Suddenly an idea came over Rinku. Rinku, Yu. Suck my blood. His silent eye and quiet voice urged her. Even normally, she hesitated to take his blood. While dodging the light bullets, Rinku embraced Yu and exposed his nape. Rinku, your magic is the last resort, do it, Yu. We will win. His strong words dwelled within her, and she nodded. She believed in him and buried her face into his nape with her fangs. Yu's body is rapidly healed when Rinku's power flowed into her. The two of them were dancing around and avoiding the light bullet storm, while they embraced each other. Now, the world grew dull in color from his view. In the world of the monochrome, all things moved slowly. Rinku looked. The scene of Yu fighting by herself while his wavering consciousness tried to hold on. She was fighting desperately with his gun in one of her hands. When she fell on the ground and the beast started to emit the aura to finish her off. Fierce anger filled Rinku. What does he have to do? Would he be satisfied just sleeping here? To permit such unreasonableness to take his partner in such a place? Was he going to yield to such a beast? At that moment, Rinku felt a spark run through his head and awakened one of his skills. The final derivation of Divine Step. By expanding the cognitive functions, it increased the efficiency of all the skills associated with Divine Step dramatically. Rinku has once again exceeded the wall. Rinku arrives next to you in an instant with the skill and gently dodges the bullets of light. Eventually, you finished sucking his blood and completely regained her powers. Rinku, when I give the signal, cast Azure Sky. Until then, put your heart and soul into evading. Okay, and Rinku? Rinku, me, spade work. Rinku dropped you off behind the pillars and ran towards the silver head. He dodges the incoming barrage of light and fires off Donner while using flicker. The beast wasn't able to stomach being hit again by the bullets, so it dodged them. Bullets from Donner end up making holes in the ceiling. Rinku kept changing the area he shot at, but all the bullets only made holes in the surroundings. A sneerful glint was in the silver head's eyes. You was becoming uneasy, but she believed in him. She waited for the signal to cast her spell. He jumped into the air with airwalk and fired off Donner. His delicate steps became possible, which had not been possible in the match. Rinku jumped around in the air near the ceiling, dodging the barrage. Irritated, the silver head gave off an aura attack carelessly. Naturally, Rinku dodged it easily with a grin. Rinku had fathomed. The head became stiff while it did its aura attack. Then he reloaded Donner and shot at 6 different places. An intense explosion and shock occurred on the ceiling. After an instant of silence, it began to collapse in one go. The large mass crushed into the silver head. His attack did not slack. If just simple debris could defeat this monster, he wouldn't have that much trouble. Rinku approached the trapped and crushed silver head with flicker. Using his transmutation, Rinku quickly changed the debris into restraints. At the same time, he created an impromptu blast furnace around the Hydra. He threw pouches containing incendiary grenades into the furnace and shouted, "Rinku, okay. Azure Sky?" A pale sun appears in the blast furnace and melts the silver head that was restrained. There was a chain explosion inside, the power broke through its defense and the silver head suffered not negligible damage. Guru. The death throes of the silver head. It tries to violently run away and shoots off the light bullets randomly. Walls started to break, but Rinku was there to repair them to prevent its escape. The Hydra tried to use its aurora attack, but the silver head melted in the high heat and was unable to shoot it. Rinku's perception could no longer sense the Hydra, as it disappeared from his senses. This time he was convinced of its death and collapsed backwards. Rinku. You crawled to him as her body had lost the ability to gather energy. Rinku, I'm beat. Rinku parted from consciousness slowly as he felt you embracing him. Chapter 14, Abode of Traitors. Rinku felt his whole body being wrapped by something warm and soft. It was a very nostalgic feeling. This is the feeling of a bed. A cushion was gently catching his head and back. The softness of feathers wrapped his body. His dozing consciousness was thrown into confusion. Rinku, what is this? This is supposed to be the dungeon, why is a bed? He was fumbling around as his consciousness was not fully awake yet. However, he couldn't move his right hand. It was wrapped in a soft feeling that was different from the bed. His palm was also wedged into something warm and soft. Rinku, what's this? Rinku moved his hand while he was still blank. He felt a certain elasticity between his hands and it was squishy when he touched it. Just keen on the feel somehow, and it becomes a habit to keep touching, then for some reason a seductive gasp could be heard. At that moment, the first visage of his consciousness came back to him. Rinku noticed as he raised himself in panic, that he really was in a bed. The bed had a pure white sheet and it felt luxurious, and it even had a canopy. It seems the bed was on a stone pavement in a terrace atrium. A refreshing breeze blew by Rinku's cheeks and the canopy. His perimeter was surrounded by pillars and a thin curtain. Can you imagine a bed in the center of a Parthenon shrine? The whole space was filled with a warm light that he hasn't seen in a long time. He was confused. Just a while ago he was in a desperate struggle fighting against the Hydra in the dungeon. Rinku, what is this place? Am I in the afterlife? In this place that felt so solemn, an ominous thought crossed his mind. Rinku's thoughts were interrupted by an amorous voice next to him. You, Rinku. When Rinku was confused, he turned over the sheet. While not wearing a single thread of clothing, you clinged onto Rinku's right hand and slept completely naked. He finally noticed that he was even naked. Rinku was left awestruck before he regained his composure, shaking his head. Rinku, you, wake up, you. When he tried to wake her up, she curled up and shook her head to fret. His right hands were between Yu's thighs and it was approaching a dangerous place. He attempted to move his hand away, but every time Yu let out a seductive pant. Gradually, he started to get irritated. Rinki could not swallow the situation and confusion, and he had a blue vein popping out on his forehead at her leisurely sleeping there. Rinku, enough. Wake the hell up, you sexy ass vampire. He invoked his lightning clad. Electric discharge started to gather in his right hand. Yu was shocked by the discharge. She released Rinku's arm and finally opened her eyes, while she twitched a little. You, Rinku. Rinku, yeah, it's me, now wake up. You, Rinku. She woke up and widened her eyes when she saw Rinku. The next moment, she jumped towards Rinku. In the nude. Rinku trembled. Rinku, sorry about that, it seems like I worried you a lot. You, I was. It seems she didn't want to stop clinging for a while. He let her do it until she was satisfied because she did take care of him. Rinku continued to stroke her head gently as he looked around. When you calmed down after a few minutes, Rinku asked about what happened. By the way, he made you cover herself with the sheet. Rinku, what happened back there, where's Ryuma? She said that after the battle, she felt dizzy from her magic depletion and snuggled right next to the collapsed Rinku. Then the double doors in the room automatically opened. Reinforcements. You stayed vigilant but nothing ever came. When she started to recover bit by bit, she decided to enter the door. The sacred water was healing Ryuma little by little. Still, he was in a dangerous state with all his serious injuries. His tough body had escaped death, but she didn't know when the sacred water would lose to the poison. Both of them would be finished if a new monster appeared. Therefore, she had to check it out. Inside was a vast space with a good-looking house in the center. Then, she confirmed it wasn't dangerous. You confirmed there was a bedroom and took the unconscious duo to it and nursed them. Recently, the god's crystal extract was decreasing considerably. They had kept drinking the sacred water. Rinku, wait. You carried us both? How the hell? Ryuma, she got them legs, son. Rinku was startled by Ryuma's sudden appearance. He then became irritated as he nonchalantly stood there as the two of them were in the nude, only barely covered up by the sheets. Rinku, where the hell did you come from? Ryuma, over there obviously. While you two were having your special time, I decided to go nap in this mansion over here. Ryuma then gave the thumbs up to you, who responded in kind as they communicated silently as they chuckled. Rinku had a feeling that being in the nude was his idea. Rinku, either way, thank you for taking care of us, you. You then handed them both some high-quality clothes she found while Ryuma was exploring. It was men's clothing. Most likely it was the trader's. Rinku confirmed his good health, then dressed himself with the clothes, and prepared his equipment. There might be some traps or tricks, so he prepared himself just in case. Ryuma was wearing his tattered arm sleeve as a blindfold still, along with a blank robe, and underneath said robe was a simple white t-shirt. He also had black trousers tucked into some brown boots. You was, in a one-piece cutter shirt. Rinku, you, what are you aiming for? You tilted her head. You, size doesn't fit. Leaving the bedroom and following Ryuma, he was amazed by the sights around them. First, sunlight had entered his eyes. It wasn't real because they were underground. There was a globe that had its cone-shaped body connected to the ceiling, and it was floating there shining. He felt slightly warm because it didn't feel artificial like fluorescent lights. Rinku unintentionally called it the sun. It also becomes a moon at night. Rinku, are you serious? Ryuma, pretty trippy huh? Next, the pleasing sounds of water entered his ears. To the back of the room was a door that led to a small-sized stadium. In the back wall of this room was a waterfall. A large quantity of water ran down that wall from the ceiling and joined the river to flow into the back cave. The cool wind full of negative ions that blew from the waterfall provided a good feeling. When he took a closer look at the water, there were fish swimming there. Possibly the fish flowed in from a terrestrial river. Rinku, thought you said it was a mansion. Ryuma, might as well be. Rinku was on the opposite side of the river and field. He was encouraged to walk towards the adjacent building to the bedroom. The construction felt like processed rock and it wasn't for dwelling. Ryuma, I wouldn't try snooping around, most of the rooms were locked. Rinku, where? The stone house was white and its texture was like lime, all of it felt so clean. In the entrance, there was a light sphere that was at the tip of a pedestal projecting from the ceiling. Rinku was dazzled with it because he had been in the dark for so long. There seemed to be 3 stories, and there seemed to be an atrium at the top. First, they wanted to look at the ground floor. They discovered a fireplace, soft carpet, living area with a messy sofa, definitely Ryuma, a kitchen, and restroom. No signs pointed to the idea that these items had been neglected for years. There was no sign of life, outside of the damages caused by Ryuma, but it had the feeling of a return home after a trip. Rinku thought it had an air that told him it hadn't been used in a while. People did not live here, but it was still being maintained. The trio continued their exploration with some caution. When they went into the interior they were outdoors again. There was a hole in this huge place, and a sculpture of a lion was enshrined in deep water there. Next to the sculpture was a magic formation. When he poured magic into the formation, warm water jumped out of the lion's open mouth. The lion seemed to be able to arrange water from anywhere in the world. Rinku, oh thank God a bath. You, together. Rinku, no. Ryuma and you looked at each other mischievously as Rinku started to get a bad feeling about what they were planning. They soon discovered a study room and workshop on the second floor. However, there seemed to be seals that prevented the opening of the doors in those rooms. With no other choice, they continued their search. There was only one room on the 3rd floor. When they opened the door into the interior, there was a wide, exquisite and delicate magic formation engraved on the floor in the center of the room. The design was something they had never seen before. A rather splendid geometric patterned formation, and it looked like art. However, something else was more noteworthy. On the other side of the magic formation was a figure sitting in a regal chair. The figure was a corpse. It was already been skeletonized and there was a stunning black robe embroidered with gold on its body. There was not a single stain on it and it seemed to be an object from a haunted house. Ryuma, oh. Go stand in the circle. You're gonna hate it? Rinku, then why would I do it then? The corpse hung its head, while leaning on the chair. It had decayed in that posture. What did this person think of in this room with only a magic formation? Why did it choose this place, instead of the bedroom or living room? You was wondering about the corpse. This person was probably one of the traitors. No signs of suffering could be seen on the figure that rested on the chair. It seemed like the figure was waiting for someone. Rinku sighed. It seems Ryuma knew what was going to happen, and he knew how to pique Rinku's attention as well. Rinku, well, if we want to reach the surface, I think this room is the key. The seals in the library and studio resisted my transmutation, so we have to investigate. You wait here, and if anything happens I'll leave it to you. Ryuma, what about me? Rinku stepped forward towards the magic formation. The moment he stepped into the center of the magic formation, a snow-white light flashes suddenly and the room is dyed with the light. Due to the intensity, Rinku closed his eyes. Something invaded into his head immediately after, and he went through the time he fell into the abyss like a revolving lantern. The light soon settled and Rinku opened his eyes. In front of his eyes was a young man in black clothing. Chapter 15, Preparations to Depart. Soon, both the pain and magic formation settled and Rinku slowly exhaled. You, Rinku, are you okay? Rinku, yeah, just heard some intense things. You asked what they wanted to do, after they had heard Arka's story? Rinku, yeah. Nothing in particular? Being summoned without permission and asking us to fight a war was bothersome. I don't even know what's going on with this world. Looking for a way to the surface and going home. That's our only goal. Are you bothered by it, you? The previous Rinku would have probably done something. However, his values had changed and it allowed him to ignore Arka's plight. This world should have its own people deal with their own problems, but Yu was a resident of this world. Since he couldn't leave her alone, he had to consider what she wanted. He couldn't cut off Yu like he did Arcus because their relationship was a lot closer. Rinku asked her for her thoughts, but after a slight hesitation she shook her head. You, I don't care about the others, my place is here with you too. She snuggled up to Rinku and took his hand. Yu tried to convey her true feelings as she grasped his hand. In the past, she devoted everything for her country. Betrayed by those she trusted and not a single person saved her. For Yu, after her long imprisonment, this world was just a prison to her. Rinku, is that so? Rinku was slightly embarrassed, made worse by a teasing glance from Ryuma. He cleared his throat to disguise it, and told the shocking truth without hesitation. Rinku, I also seem to learn some new magic, Age of Gods magic it seems. Yu had an expression that said she didn't believe him, but it was expected. The magic used in the Age of Gods was lost to the modern world. It was transition magic that summoned him and the others here, and that was an Age of Gods magic. Yu, what kind of magic? Rinku, creation magic. You can create artifacts? Rinku, and break them down and create new materials from them. Ryuma, how? Who knows? They had received a ring that Arcus had worn. Don't call them grave robbers. On the ring was an engraved pattern that was crosswise in the circle, and the pattern was the same as the seals in the library and studio. First, they headed to the study. They noticed the door was broken down, presumably by Ryuma. Their first purpose was to search for a way to the surface. Rinku unlocked the seal on the bookshelf and checked it for anything notable. They discovered the designs for the whole dwelling. Although it wasn't to the degree of a blueprint, where what went, it was a memo of where certain buildings would be placed. When they examined the plan more, there was an independent golem in the studio that maintained this dwelling periodically. The light from the globes on the ceiling had the same property as natural sunlight. This meant that crops and other things that rely on sunlight could be grown. It seems the reason this place felt so clean, even when no life was here, was because of the golem. The studio acted as a storage for all the artifacts and materials Arcus had made during his lifetime. These items were stolen, transferred to them. There were quite a lot of devices. Yu had been investigating the other documents while Rinku checked the plans, and brought him one of the books. The book was Arcus' memoir. Inside the memoirs were the daily lives of former comrades, especially about the 8 core members of the Liberators. Within the passages, one of them was related with the dungeons the other 7 made. Rinku, in other words, is that if we conquer the other dungeons, would we obtain the Creator's ancient magic? Maybe. Ryuma, so we have to travel to more of these dungeons. Sounds like a pain. Rinku, tell me about it. According to the memoirs, just like Arcus, the other 7 liberators were prepared to teach their ancient magic to those that conquer their dungeon and reach the final floor. Unfortunately, the type of magic was not written. Rinku, but maybe we found a way home. Just as you said, there was a possibility. The transition magic that summoned beings from other worlds was ancient magic. Rinku, looks like we have a guideline from now on. To conquer the 8 great dungeons when we return to the surface. They were looking for more information, but they weren't able to find any data that showed the exact locations of the dungeon. Currently, the confirmed dungeons are a mountain of great flames around the Guru Yun Desert, and Hartzina Sea of Trees. The rumored dungeons were Raisin Great Canyon and Shni Snowfield. They had no choice but to investigate all of them. Ryuma, we don't even have a definitive list of where to look. Rinku, don't complain, it's better than nothing. Satisfied with their search for the study, the 2 moved to the studio. There were a lot of small rooms, broken into, in the studio. Inside them were various never-seen-before ores and work tools. Theory books crowded the area and it could be mistaken as a paradise for transmutation masters. Rinku folded his arms and pondered as he looked over the studio. When you saw him in that state, she looked puzzled and voiced it. What's up? Ryuma, he's probably in deep thought, give him a minute. After being lost in thought for a while, Rinku made a proposition. Rinku, can we stay here for a bit? I want to quickly get to the surface, but there are many things to learn and this is the best base. When thinking about conquering the other dungeon, I want to prepare as much as possible here. How about it? Ryuma, you're making us wait? You had been sealed underground for 300 years and she did not want to lose a second in getting to the surface. However, after becoming speechless at Rinku's proposal, she immediately approved. Anywhere is fine if you 2 are there. That's how it is. Rinku tried to hide his embarrassment at Yu's surprise declaration. They all decided to train and equip themselves as much as possible here. Evening of that day, the sun in the ceiling had changed into a moon and gave off a pale light. Rinku let his whole body relax as he soaked in the bath. After falling into the abyss, this was the first time he had loosened up. A bath was often said to cleanse the mind. Rinku, phew, this is the best. A voice that was unthinkable for the current Rinku's nature came out. When he loosened his whole body, he suddenly heard footsteps. The completely off-guard Rinku shivered. Although he said he would enter alone. Of course, the one to make the sounds and enter the bath was. Feels so good. You immediately sat down near Rinku, stark naked. Rinku, didn't I say I'll enter alone? I refused. Rinku, this was Ryuma's idea, wasn't it? At least cover your front. There are plenty of towels. Rather you look. Rinku, Rinku, fine, I'll go. I won't let you go. Rinku, wait. Ryuma, and that's the story of how Rinku lost his V card.